All right, welcome everyone. My name is Jill Brito. I'm the co-founder of Journey Online Tutoring. We're an online tutoring and academic coaching service based here in Loveland, or in Fort Collins, Colorado, northern Colorado. But we serve clients across the United States, mostly middle schoolers and high schoolers or recent high school graduates. And tonight we're doing a webinar called How to Survive Virtual Learning with Teenagers Without Losing Your Mind. And the reason for this is that as the fall has come and so many school districts across the country are online for the indeterminate future, a lot of parents have come to us just asking for advice on how to balance a lot of things, how to get through this, how to help themselves and their kids be successful in this time where everything is just kind of turned on top of its head. So without further ado, I'll just kind of jump right in. So the objectives this evening are to address concerns that we've heard from parents about online learning, and provide actionable, doable solutions to address these concerns, as well as some resources of where you can get some additional help if you need it. One of the things that I really want to offer is very concrete tools that you can actually use. I actually went to a webinar last week with a very similar topic to this. And I came out more stressed and overwhelmed than I went in because the presenter, although her intentions were very good, was very much, you need to do this, you need to do this, watch out for this, don't forget this. And it was a lot of what and not much how. So I'm wanting to give you some very basic what and how, but these are tools that we use with our clients, and it's really practical and very powerful. And just so we're all on the same page tonight, I want to start with the assumptions that we're coming into this, that we're making about your kids as well as you. So we're assuming that you have a middle schooler, a high schooler, or a recent high school graduate, perhaps a college student. We're assuming that your kids are able to access their virtual learning, and know what, one second, and know what is expected of them from their teachers. Hi, welcome. We just got started. We're assuming that your kids have some level of autonomy in their own education. And what I mean by that is that they don't require someone sitting next to them all day, every day, telling them what to do. They're at least able to go on, understand what's expected of them, and at least technically get it done. The assumptions we have about you here tonight is that you have responsibilities outside of your teenager's education, whether that's work or just any other things that you have in your life. We're assuming that you cannot sit with your teenager 8 hours a day as they work. And we're also assuming that you're wanting some tips to help your students succeed in a virtual environment, as well as maintain your sanity and maintain a positive relationship with your teenager, because this can be a very stressful situation for everyone. So if this is not your situation, we completely understand that everyone will not fit into this box. We would still love to help you out. So please feel free to get in contact with us after this webinar tonight, and we'll have our contact information at the end. So I wanted to address the 4 major stressors that we've heard from parents over the last couple of months about online learning, and pretty much in this order. The number one thing we hear is parents are worried that their kids are going to get behind in school. Virtual learning is obviously not the ideal situation. Most people wouldn't choose this otherwise, because it's not easy for kids to get engaged, stay on top of their stuff. And it's just not the way that most of us envision our kids learning, or the way most kids learn best. So there is a concern about what this will mean for them long-term academically and for their future. The next thing is their kids' organization. They're worried that, kids' organization has been an issue even before COVID. Just having a system, getting organized, staying organized, and coronavirus and the pandemic has kind of superimposed this additional weight of needing to get organized and stay organized that a lot of kids are just not prepared for. Unfortunately, we tell a lot of our students, this is one of the things that we work with our academic coaching. This isn't taught in school. It's really hard because it's not like, they'll say like, okay, write in a planner, but they don't teach you how to get organized or why it's important. So this is another concern we hear from parents. We heard recently about the stress about the relationship dynamic changing. Before COVID, you were just a parent. You were there to help guide your teenager, encourage them, kind of look out for them academically. And a parent said, well, now I have to be the enforcer. And that kind of hit us like, wow, you're trying to play two roles to enforce, make sure they're doing everything they need to, but also support them. So that creates kind of a strange dynamic in the relationship that wasn't there before. And the last that both my business partner and I can relate to as working parents is, how do you balance your own work? A lot of us are now working from home. I'm obviously at home right now. And make sure you're supporting your kid in their online learning. So these are kind of the things that kind of sparked our desire to do this webinar and provide some tips. So we've got 5 tips that we want to share with you tonight. And we are going to send out this, the slide deck, as well as kind of a workbook to go through these things. I'm going to present them to you, but we want you to later on have some time to kind of think through these things in a really practical way. And this is how we start with all of the teens and the adults we work with, is we want to understand what the problem is and what we really need. So what we would really recommend for you as a parent is to start out by identifying what specifically is causing you the most stress and anxiety around this whole virtual learning situation. And I would recommend breaking that into, for you personally, are you stressed about having to work from home? Maybe that's not something you've had to do before. Are there personal relationship dynamics that have changed because of this situation? What in your personal life is stressing you out specifically, and identify that. And then regarding your teenager specifically, what are your biggest stressors in this area? Are you concerned about them getting behind academically, their ability, to stay on top of their schoolwork? Because if we can identify really what the root cause of our stressors is, it'll be a lot easier to build a solution around how to address them. So I just put these guiding questions. Ask yourself, once you've identified these things, maybe mine is, I'm worried about not having enough time to get my work done while helping my kids with school. What would be your ideal situation? I mean, obviously we would all love to, go to Bali and stay there until COVID is over. But given your current reality, what would your ideal situation be for virtual learning, for staying in quarantine? And then ask yourself, what do I need for me? In that first question you ask yourself about your stresses, what do I need to really help address these stressors? And what do I need my teenager to do? Okay, and really take some time to reflect on those things, because that'll help as you develop a solution, which is our next step that I'm going to teach you about. That'll help make it really clear what the path forward will look like. So start by determining what you want and need from this semester or this season, however that looks like for your family. And this next step is create a collaborative plan, which we call Plan B, using what we call Plan B communication strategy. And this is really kind of the foundation of all the things we teach our tutoring students, our academic coaching students, and our life coaching students. Because what we found in most interpersonal relationships and most conflicts, it's usually a communication issue. And so let me kind of start by explaining what Plan B is. There are a lot, let me just acknowledge, there are a lot of communication strategies out there, and a lot of them are really, really good. we're very committed to this one because we use it with our own kids. We've seen it work very, very well, and it works especially well with adolescents. So what is it? When you have a conflict, we think there are 3 plan options, right? Let's think plan A. Let's say, I'm going to give you an example. You're fighting with your kid about using their phone during virtual learning. Maybe they're on Snapchat all the time, and that's not okay. So you get into a little verbal tip about it. Plan A would be everybody just reacts and explodes. Okay, you just, all the emotions kind of come together, but maybe it doesn't really get resolved. You get stuff out, but there's no solution that's come to at the end. Plan C would be, maybe you have this squabble or this comes up, but you don't really say anything. You kind of leave it there. But in both of these situations, maybe this one is more of a conflict avoidance. Both of these situations, they don't really come up with a solution that works for anybody. So plan B, what we call it, is the idea is coming up with a collaborative solution where both parties have buy-in and you come up with a plan together that everybody can agree on and live with. So, and it works because, especially with teenagers, as I'm sure you're aware, they don't like to be told what to do. And part of it is that they're in a stage in their life when they really want to assert their independence, and they want to feel like they have some level of autonomy over what happens in their life. So although we're obviously still their parents, if we can collaborate with them and give them a voice and have buy-in from them on whatever solution we come up with, it tends to be really, really effective, is what our experience has been with ourselves personally and with our clients. And the idea is to discover what your teen wants and needs, share what you want and need, the goal being come up with a collaborative plan with input and buy-in from both of you at the end. So there's 3 steps of how to do this. Step 1, and again, the idea is you want to have an intentional conversation about what you both want and need from this semester. Now, this strategy can be used for any kind of interpersonal communication. I'm using this in the context of talking with your teenager about a plan for the semester where you can address potential issues that could come up, where you can both come together. But this, just so you know, this can be used for anything, and not just with teenagers. I use it with spouses, with business partners, with friends, with anything. It's truly very powerful. A key to step 1 to getting started is to wait till everybody's calm. Let's go back to the phone example. Perhaps you've had an argument with your teenager about this. In the heat of the moment, usually when emotions are high, things are not going to get solved. So we want to wait till everybody is calm and kind of the dust is settled. Maybe it could be an hour later, it could be a day later, it could be a couple days later. But bring it up at a time when everybody's in a good mood, everybody's calm. Maybe you're taking a walk together, maybe you're at the breakfast table, maybe you're just taking a drive. But we want everybody to be kind of even keeled when we start this conversation. And we want to let our teen put their input in first, because we really want to have them feel like they have ownership and we're not just kind of dragging them along with our plan. So in this situation, you would ask your teen, say, hey, let's talk about this semester. I know we may have some differences of opinion. Let's come up with something, a plan where we're not fighting all the time, where we're living in a peaceful house and everybody can agree. So these are just some questions you could ask them. What do you want out of the semester? What do you feel like you need to get what you want? And ask them, what are you worried about? What are you frustrated about? And the key here is just to sit back and listen. I know personally as a parent, my first thought is like, I need to jump in and give advice. I need to tell them like, well, last week, this didn't work out the way you said. But really the key component excuse me, is active listening. So just let them talk, let them get out. We even ask like clarifying questions saying, so when you say meet with your friends, what do you mean by that? And just ask for clarity. Even repeat back to confirm understanding. So this is just a space where they can get everything out, and you're not responding, you're just acknowledging, you're validating. You don't have to agree with them, but they just need to know that they're heard. So let them talk first. That's step one. Get out what their wants and their needs are, even if you don't agree. So at this point, when your teen feels that they're heard, they're understood, they're not being judged, they will be much more likely to listen to where you're coming from. So step two is where you talk. You tell them what you need this semester. You tell them your concerns and why it's important to you. And a key piece of this is to make it about you and not about them. And what I mean by that is, this isn't the point where we're saying, I need you to do this and this and this and this. You say, for an example, I need to know that you are able to stay on top of your schoolwork. I'm concerned because I know that you want to go to college and I want to help make that happen, but I'm also working and I can't be watching you, and I know you don't want that either. So being able to be open, be vulnerable, that'll encourage conversation to happen. And so at this point, your teenagers talked, you've gotten everything out. The last step is now developing a collaborative solution. So now that you've both shared, you're able to see each other's perspective and then say something like, okay, so we have a problem, or we have some different ideas or different needs. What should we do? And again, open it up to conversation. Let your teenager start talking first. You know, you might get the classic, oh, I don't know. Like I get that a lot from the teenagers I work with. But you could start asking maybe something like, so like about the phone, what do you think we should do? And let them give ideas, let them brainstorm and work together, go back and forth. This is a good place as you start kind of going down the funnel of what your wants and needs are. This is where you can set clear expectations and consequences for not meeting those expectations, and even involve your teen in that. I know that sounds crazy, but for example, like, okay, I want you to do this. I want you to turn in all your homework. What should be a consequence if you don't? So for example, with the phone, you know, maybe you set an expectation with your teenager that the phone is not in their room when they're doing virtual school. I just talked to a recent client of mine about this. And you've both agreed on it. Well, let's say, John, I find that you're using Snapchat while you're in school. What do you think the consequence should be? They may have an idea about that. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But this is a place where you can be very clear about what you expect, so there's no ambiguity. And there could be no arguments about this. So also keep in mind, as you go through this, this is kind of a trial and error practice, you know, thing. I had a student come back to me saying, oh, I tried to use plan B and, oh, I got through step one and I didn't do it. So I'm like, you know what? No, it's okay. Like this is something you're trying to do. And I think your teenager will appreciate that you're trying to involve them in situations and that involve them. So I would encourage you, if it doesn't work out exactly the way you do, maybe you go through this whole process, things don't work out, just go back to the beginning. Say, hey, I thought we'd agreed on this. What happened? Let's talk about this. And I would encourage you to write down your plan. As simple as possible, but that really, it helps. Like, you don't need to sign it or anything, but just say, hey, we agreed on this, this, and this. So that's plan B, and we found it's very, very useful. The next thing we would really recommend, and this is something you can use plan B to do, is develop a daily routine. It's really easy to kind of get in a rut in this, especially with teenagers. They roll out of bed, they maybe don't want to get dressed, they don't want to do the normal things they would normally do if they were actually going to school face to face. But developing it doesn't have to be a military routine, or if you want to call it a rhythm, I think really brings a lot of security and structure where everything around us kind of feels chaotic. And this will look different from family to family, obviously, but we put down some ideas of things that have come up as we've talked to our clients that maybe you could talk to your teen about, like sleeping. What time do we go to bed? What time do we wake up? Another big thing is wear electronics when we go to bed. Are you okay with your teen being with their phone in their room, or are they gonna sleep in the kitchen? Not your teen, your teen's phone. So addressing, this is what I expect of you. Getting ready for school. We really recommend having an expectation that even though you're staying home all day, you get up, you get dressed, you have breakfast, you brush your teeth, you act as if you're going to school and going to work. Just from a psychological perspective, this really, staying in your pajamas all day, it really just changes even just how you approach things in your day. And it really helps to have this as part of your normal routine. Ask about meals. When do we stop school? When do we have lunch? Maybe your kids have gotten in a habit of snacking throughout the day. Say, no, we're going to have breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It doesn't always have to be together at this time, but maybe you say at least twice a week, we're all going to have dinner together. School time and work time. Depending on what your student does, a lot of students are having synchronous or asynchronous school. I would recommend saying, like, even in those asynchronous times, have an expectation of when you're expecting your kids to be working on school. They do definitely need brain breaks. If they've been sitting in front of a computer for 6 hours, they may need 30 minutes to, go on a run or, talk to their friend on FaceTime or whatever it is. But saying, okay, after school's done, 2:30 to 3:30, you have a brain break. And then 3:30 to 5, I expect you to be finishing your schoolwork. But just laying that out. We also really recommend having a designated space for school where that's possible. In some situations, like your bedroom might be the only place that is really available for school. But if you can separate the place where you can go to school and leave school, ideally in a place that's different from where you rest and relax, that's really helpful so you can actually leave it and go to it. It's like an on and off switch. I think just mentally, that's very helpful. You might want to think about different ways you're going to check in with your kids, particularly if you have that concern about them academically. A close friend of mine who has a sophomore in high school, who is a great student, says, you know what, I trust you, but at the end of every day, I'm going to check in with you and ask you to tell me what you did that day and what you turned in. So again, using Plan B, coming up with that collaborative plan, what that looks like would be really important. And I also put in there social emotional check-in, relational check-in. We kind of get in this pattern where we just go, go, go. If you can write in a schedule, even, once a week, we're going to do something that doesn't involve school and work. We're going to unplug. We're going to go on a hike. We're going to go on a walk. We're going to go on a bike ride, whatever it is. So that you can connect with your kids intentionally in a space outside of online learning and online work, whatever that looks like for you. I would also write down and post this routine. And this can be also part of the expectations in Plan B. But just kind of saying in these different areas, these are what we expect. This is kind of what our Monday through Friday is going to look like. And it doesn't need to be super regimented, but it can be like, this is the order we're going to do things in. And generally we find that actually that brings a lot of kind of de-stress. It de-stresses us a little bit. Number 4 is just be intentional about self-care. This is a really stressful time I haven't talked to one parent who's like, oh, this is awesome. Like virtual learning is amazing. And it's important that we're intentional about first giving ourselves and our kids grace when things don't go well. And to just be very clear about what that means is don't beat yourself up. Nobody's ever been asked to do what we're doing right now. So make sure you give yourself and your kids a break when things don't go exactly as planned. And think of this as a trial and error. Like, okay, maybe during plan B, like, okay, we tried this way, it didn't work. How can we make this work? And realizing there's no right way to do this. Everything I'm presenting tonight and anything you can learn out there about how to structure this is suggestions, and they should be tools for you to use in a way that works for you and your family. So to the extent that you can, try to get away from I'm not doing it right, thinking I'm doing the best that I can for my family. And really asking yourself, what do you need to do to take care of yourself mentally, emotionally, spiritually, whatever that means in the season, and building that into that daily routine for you. For me specifically, I need 20 minutes a day to myself. I've got 2 small kids, and I need just some time to reset. I take a walk every morning by myself, and that's what I need. And it's amazing what just that small thing every day will help do. What can you do weekly? Like once a month, can I, have a socially distanced, coffee with a friend, whatever that is for you. What do you need to do on those daily, weekly, and monthly bases? And we really recommend trying to do things that are unplugged. A lot of times we think, getting on Instagram or Facebook or scrolling through the news is a way we unplug, but it actually is stimulating our brain and can cause actually additional stress. So if we can get outside, if we can do yoga, whatever that is for you, but be intentional about writing that into your schedule. And finally, the last one is just get help when you need it. Don't be ashamed or afraid to ask for help. Nobody's ever been asked to do this. So if you need help, find out what is taking time and what is stressing you out, like we did right at the very beginning. And just think, what could you do? A few ideas we wrote out, if your kids are in a space where they can join a pod, so they can be with some other kids, lighten the load, socialization, order groceries online, or consider a meal service if that's within your budget and ability to do. Consider an academic tutor or an academic coach if that's something that would be helpful for your family in this time. So just to summarize everything we did, 5 things. Determine what is stressing you out and what you need and want for this semester. Create a collaborative plan with your teenager using that Plan B communication strategy. Let them talk. You tell them what you need, and then develop a solution together. Develop a daily routine where everybody knows what's expected of them. Be intentional about self-care and get help when you need it. So that's all we have for today. I'm going to stop the recording, but I am going to open it up for some Q&A. Let me stop the recording.